fathers, my brothers, I lift up my voice and raise it high, telling the stories of your children's cries. For our ability to survive the onslaught of the enemy's drugs, guns, and alcohol, his prisons and his killing fields, depends directly on whether you are willing to stand up and resist the outrages that are being heaped upon us as a people and build a new society. Yes, the task is difficult. The odds are against you. But you must organize to find a way or make your own way. Go ahead, brother. You must change today so that tomorrow may dare to be different. And when you have fought back and regained your pride, when you have won some battles, when you are able to tell the stories of your heroism, when you can pass on to your young the tradition of struggle through examples of your having stood up for a better tomorrow, when you take control of our institutions, our media, our schools, when you maximize our economic resources towards our own benefits, when you stop making excuses, when you start standing with our mothers, when you stick it out with your families, when you start mentoring our young, when you start teaching us to be humane, then we can build a new nation of strong people. Your sons and daughters will no longer need to belong to gangs because they do belong. Our youth will no longer be seeking drugs as an escape because they would have outlets in our society to develop themselves. When you start setting the conditions for our youth to fulfill their humanities, then we will not be in despair. We will be whole, complete, and hopeful. My fathers, you must shape the vision of tomorrow. But in order for that vision to become a reality, you must rededicate yourself to a new beginning. Go back to your families. Go raise and teach your children. Go back and organize throughout this nation to bring about a better day for our people. Our enemies can destroy us one by one, but no one can stop 1 million men organized and committed. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Good morning. I am your teacher as well as student this morning, Alonzo Richard Fleming. I want to thank you, those of you who are joining me on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube. Thank you for joining us this morning. This morning's program is a very serious program, as they all are. But this particular morning's program, it touched me in a way to where I can't tell you just how it was so touching in terms of my own heart and the gravity of what must be done and the time that it is that must be done. Our subject this morning is principles for developing successful and healthier boys and men by the 21st century. So before I get started, I want to show you some of the references that I'm going to be using in this morning's program so you will understand that it's coming from research, it's coming from thought, it's coming from meditation and prayer, and I'm hoping to give you something that you can take away and use on your own son. So I'm using some of the references are The Miseducation of the Negro by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. These are some of the references that I'm using. The Spirit of a Man, Spiritual Transformation for Black Men and the Women Who Love Them by Elanya Van Zant. And this is an excellent study source, or a beginning study source if you want to really get in touch with your own self. It's an excellent study source for men. Ray Dalio's Principles, and this particular reference brings economic value with moral values. It's a really good source. The Opinions and Philosophy of the Honorable Marcus Garvey, A Course in Miracles. These are references. Message to the Black Man in America by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And if you have not read that, you have missed one of the fundamental lessons of developing as a people. The Nag Hammadi Scriptures. And this is dealing with scriptures that the Vatican and the Council of Nice and all of these are the scriptures that they wouldn't put in to tell you what Jesus was talking about when he said what he said. The Bible, of course, I'll be using references from the Bible. The Kabbalion brings out the 7 Hermetic principles of physical manifestation and reality. It's a necessary thing. And I want to say to you, brothers and sisters, if you are somewhat reluctant to exploring some of these resources, we have never been taught anything that we can use. We haven't been taught. And I want to encourage you to study everything because you are everything. However, you may not know you are everything. So those are some of the references that I will be using as we go through this whole lesson. There are 76 years left in the current century. And what I'm hoping to get you to do is to look a little bit past your own lifespan to develop a viable people. And if we start now and resist the distractions that come at us daily, then by the end of the century, we will have a loving, thriving, and prosperous population. This civilization, brothers and sisters, is not an accident. It's not done by accident. So to look past your own lifespan is necessary for leadership. Your children and your grandchildren really are your future, because some of you are going to have to revisit this manifestation of earth to complete your development. And you're setting yourself up, you're setting up the environment for that return that some of you must do. But right now, we are in a current environment of strain. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go to A Course in Miracles to show you something here. I'm going to be reading from A Course in Miracles. This is the state of grace in A Course in Miracles. And it reads, this is the environment, and it talks about environment. The world goes against your nature, being out of accord with God's laws. The world perceives order of difficulty in everything. That is because the ego perceives nothing as fully desirable. By demonstrating to yourself that there is no order of difficulty in miracles, and a miracle is just a change in perception, you will convince yourself that in your natural state, there is no difficulty at all, because the natural state is a state of grace. Grace, brothers, is the natural environment of every son of God. And when he is not in a state of grace, he is out of his natural environment and does not function well. Everything he does becomes a strain because he was not created for the environment that he has made for himself. Talking about the Son of God, you. He therefore cannot adapt his environment to it. He cannot adapt to his environment, nor can he adapt the environment to him. There is no point in trying. A son of God is happy only when he knows that he is with God. And we're going to get into what that means as we go on. That is the only environment in which he will not experience strain, because that is where he belongs. It is also the only environment that is worthy of him, because of his own worth is beyond anything that he can make. Your worth is beyond anything that you can make or develop. It really is. Consider the kingdom you have made and judge its worth fairly. And it's talking about the environment. And you calling this environment is a kingdom. Consider this kingdom. Think about what you have built, the environment that we live in. Is it worthy to be a home for a child of God? Does it protect his peace and shine love upon him? Does it keep his heart untouched by fear and allow him to give always without any sense of loss? Does the environment that we have built for ourselves teach us that this giving is our joy? In other words, does it teach us to give and how to give? And that God himself would thank him for his giving? That is the only environment in which you can be happy, an environment of joy. You cannot make it any more than you can make yourself. It has been created for you as you were created for it. That is the state of grace, the natural state of that is for us. It is the natural environment that we belong in. And so the Course in Miracles is basically asking us to consider the environment that we have created for ourselves, or we have submitted ourselves to, and consider whether or not that environment serves the purpose that we thought it would serve us when we committed to it. And like I said, there are about 76 years left in the current century. And so we want to create an environment that looks past our lifespan, that develops in our lifespan, and will be in a state of existence or a state of grace when our children, our grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren come into existence. And as I also said, some of you are going to have to come back and revisit this manifestation. So it's in your interest to develop an environment that will be conducive to that. And I know that that's difficult for some of you to understand, but it is the truth nonetheless. So first, let's give a definition of principles, not doctrines. Principles transcend time, space, location, belief, race, and culture. Principles are self-evident and open to all. Principles are no respecter of person. So, say, for example, the principle of gravity. Gravity affects everybody the same way. They can go and do an experiment on gravity and see that gravity affects everyone the same way. It's a principle. It transcends time. It transcends space. Gravity transcends culture, transcends race. There is no respecter of person with respect to gravity. And that's an example of a principle. There are no authority figures in principle. When it comes to principles, there are no authority figures. In other words, the president is not an authority. Your bishop or pastor is not an authority. Your teacher is not an authority. Principles are open to every one and you can cross-check principles. Any and everyone can cross-check principles and get the principle for himself. And principles are not offended by you testing them. They're not offended by you testing principles. Principles can be falsified and tested independently, and you can get the same results anyone who tries the principle. That is the key. Principles are laws that anyone can use, and they are self-evident. But authority is something different. What is authority? One who is deemed to be correct because he said it. That's what an authority figure is. We have to accept what he says because he said it. He has this reputation for saying things, and he has a crowd around him, and the crowd validates what he says by quoting him. And you can quote someone, but you still have the right to test it. And if he's offended by your testing, if this authority is offended by your testing what he says, then rest assured he is not dealing with principle. Here is an example. Einstein is deemed to be the smartest man who ever lived, with respect to science and physics, the smartest man. But if Einstein was to say this, that, or the other, I have the ability and freedom to test what he said. For example, after he developed the principle or saw the principle of relativity, Einstein, because he believed that the earth or that the universe was stagnant and didn't expand, built into his equations a cosmological constant. And this cosmological constant allowed Einstein to still have relativity, but with a static universe, because a dynamic universe or an expanding universe indicates a God. So they were concerned about that. He built that into his equations. Then he later called it the greatest blunder he ever made, because we discovered subsequently that the universe is expanding. Well, how did they determine that the universe is expanding? Somebody went to all of Einstein's equations and tested them and tried them and looked at them and realized that no, the cosmological constant that you built into this equation does not work, is no good. So Einstein called it his biggest blunder. So even though it was Albert Einstein, he is still subject to testing. There is no authority figure in principles. Doctrines, on the other hand, are not open to examination or proof. Doctrines are based in belief and authority. Doctrine is held despite a proof to the contrary or a credible indication that the doctrine cannot be correct. Do you understand that? This is what doctrines are based on. They're based on an authority and belief. You have to believe it. You can't know it. You see, doctrines are, you can't know a doctrine. You have to believe a doctrine. You see, and so this is determined by the desired effect compared to what the doctrine delivers. You see what I'm saying? The doctrine says something, and you get an effect that doesn't correspond with what the doctrine is claiming that it can deliver. So doctrines are based on belief and an authority, and are not subject to testing, trying, or falsification. So let's look at the trajectory that we as a people are on. There, or appear to be on, I should say. There are those, mainly black people, who are making a living by constantly showing over the internet the ill and wild behavior of some of our young people and our women. This is splashed across the planet for the world to see and projected as the culture of the foundational Black American. But let me ask you, you see all this stuff over the internet, crazy Black women, out of control youth. Let me ask you, is what you see on the internet or depicted on the internet as us, as our youth and our women, your daily experience? This depiction is not new. The only difference between the way we're being depicted online and across the world and in the news is not new, except that we are participating in advancing the narrative. They've always done this. They've always had us as sambos and minstrels. This has always been. Let me show you what I'm talking about. As sambos and minstrels, we've always been seen as sambos. We've always been seen as minstrels. They've always done this to us. We've always been portrayed as step and fetch it. The media has always portrayed our women as foolish big mamas and got big butts out of control and can hardly speak. We've always been this way in their media. They've always done us in blackface and done all kind of minstrel shows for us and splashed it around the world as what we are like. We've always been placed in a position of having low intelligence and the inability to be civilized. We've always been portrayed this way in slides and in movies. This is Shirley Temple here. Shirley Temple is in blackface. We've always, brothers and sisters, been portrayed as minstrels and out of control and having no sense of civilized behavior. The only difference being that we participate in it because there has now popped up a group of people who specialize, Black people, who specialize in putting us down and showing the worst of us in being cussing our women out or cussing the women out. And I'm going to talk to you about our women and the women, because there is a woman that don't belong to us, brothers. And we're being fooled to believe that she belongs to us. But even if she did, it's a very small percentage being blown up as the majority. And this has been done during our entire period in America. They've always shown us as uncivilized people, even when we were the most civilized. And you're going to be amazed that when we were the most civilized. So this is not new, except that there are Black people making a living showing us as an uncivilized beast. But here is a realistic perspective. Here's a realistic perspective about what we really are. In reality, brothers, in our population, and that's in any population, by the way, so this will help you to understand your brothers around the planet. In reality, only about 2% of our people are what could be considered irredeemable. And I'll explain to you what irredeemable means later. But this irredeemable 2% are the loudest and the most vocal. And the so-called influencers capitalize on this 2%. Now, this 2%, which is a very small percentage of the 100% of us, they affect about the behavior about 18% of the population, causing them to act out of the aberrative behavior of the 2%. Now, remember, the 2% of any population are literally unredeemable. And so with that 2% influencing the 18% of the population is causing a bad behavior in 20% of the population. It's causing bad behavior. The bad behavior that the influencers are hyping up to make money from. That leaves 80% of our population that's productive, wholesome, and loving. 80%. Now, this 18% now, going back to it, that's why I say, in your experience, do you see this behavior on a daily basis that's splashed across the internet? No, you don't see that. In your behavior, in your day-to-day living, you see happy, wholesome, healthy people. But because this perception has been given to us, we're looking at each other in ways that is being developed by the 2% and the influencers. Now, 2% of the population is irredeemable. They can't be dealt with. But the 18% that they influence are redeemable. Now remember, there are 80% of us who's doing well, considering. If we isolate the small 2% as outliers, the 18% would demonstrate civilized behavior. They're just under a hypnotic state. You see, I'm giving you these numbers because we're going to use these numbers to help with what we're doing by developing or using principles for developing successful men and boys by the end of the century. So if we dealt with that 18%, the 2% would, quite frankly, be bred out of our population, giving us, but even if they're there, they have no influence on our behavior. They are the trailer trash of our population. And I'm using these words because I need to express a process to you without, I'm not demeaning the humanity of them. I'm simply pointing out that if we are to survive, we have to take a realistic look at what the survival principles and mechanisms are. If we dealt with the 18% that the 2% currently influence, that gives us 98% of the population that conducts itself as we did prior to integration. And you know, we talk about what our development was prior to integration. We talk about it. But let me say here, I want to say this here to the white folks. I've already talked about how your forefathers did the same thing that's being done now. These minstrel shows and boosting that up. And I'm not talking about the people like Matthew who are just literally speaking out and doing something. Matthew Pradden, I forgot how to pronounce his last name. He wrote the movie about the Trump, Sins of Our Fathers. You need to take a look at that movie, Sins of Our Fathers, how Trump got here. But prior to integration, there was a behavior and a conduct and a development trajectory that Black people were on. So I want to say to the whites that who get joy out of watching the buffoonery depicted by those blacks who get orgasms by making you feel comfortable in your own mockery of us. Let me remind you of something. We have been in your hands and the hands of your forefathers for the past 450 years. We are your product. We are what you look like and make. Your education, we speak, we have. Your language, we speak. Your religion that was forced on our forefathers for centuries and now have literally become part of our DNA. We practice your religion. Your political system we participate in. It's not ours. We didn't make it. The current rot and corruption of your political system is now on full display for all to see. Your economic model we try to fit into. Though your government double talks us, double deals with us, withholds and sanction capital from us, except to build those useless churches that your banks finance and useless schools that you approve of. We don't even know our own names. We don't even know our own names, for God's sake. And we have absolutely no idea where we come from. Yet you educate and give us preachers who insist they know the name of God himself. And then you sit them in our communities to further confuse us. We don't know our name. How the hell you know the name of God, preacher? How do you know the name of God? You don't know your own name. So, Mr. Caucasian, you are in no position to look down your nose like the Pharisees did in Jesus' day at the publican, saying, I'm glad I'm not like him. Because everything about us is a mirror and a witness to what your system teaches. And the only time we were developing as a viable civilization was when we were segregated from you. And even then, your ancestors burned our towns, hung us, cheated on us, raped our women, killed our children. Even when we were segregated and was developing as a viable civilization. So if we were segregated and developing a viable civilization, and now we're integrated and look like animals, what does that say about you? You elected a rapist. Let me say what I gotta say. You elected a rapist. And I'm talking about the Christians. 98% of white Christians, evangelical Christians, elected a rapist, a convicted criminal, and a buffoon as president. You elected him 3 times. In your mind, the worst white man is preferred over the most developed black man and his wife, as we saw, which was a backlash of Barack Obama. You call Barack Obama and his wife monkeys, and Michelle you call a man, and you splash it over the internet, just like your fathers did. See, because you say that if we were in their days, we wouldn't do anything like that, but you splash it over the internet just like they did, thereby proving that you are the sons of those who did it to us. You printed and made mockery of Michelle and Barack as a monkey, and Michelle as a man, Michelle, a dignified woman, you called a man. But we know Melania is not a man. And the reason we know Melania Trump, who you accept and put on a pedestal is not a man, because we've seen her tits and her ass all over the internet. We've seen it. We know what she did for a living, and we've seen it. And so 98% of white Christians voted for this man 3 times and make excuses for his behavior. But the Obamas you loathe despite his impeccable conduct as president of the United States and his desire to do for all the people. Even when he was elected, even when he was in office, and 98% of us voted for him, he stood up and said, I'm not the black president, I'm everybody's president. So even the black man stood up to try to help you to get along. So I just want to say, when you look at us in mockery, you are looking in a mirror at yourselves. So stop it. Just stop it. Because you're looking at yourself. We're talking about the principles for developing successful men and boys by the end of the century. And what I just gave you was just the overview of the perceived condition that requires us to do something different. So the lesson is designed to help us as fathers and mothers and grandparents to develop self-awareness within our sons and grandsons, spirituality, confident, to help them to become spiritually confident, give them skills to function in the material world as an equal to any man in the human family. And despite what I just went on my tirade about how some white folk are, we still count them as part of the human family. Okay? So we're going to use, speaking of which, the 8 dynamics of survival, brothers and sisters, that you must come to terms with. So there are principles that help us develop. And we want to develop successful boys and men by the end of this century. We can put in place the foundation right now. But here are the prerequisites that we need in order to do this. The prerequisites that we need are simple. We have to look past our own lifespan. See past our own lifespan, I should say. So, and then conduct ourselves with that in mind, with them in mind, and what foundation we are laying for our young people. See, to the females, you got to become conscious of what you say, because males hear females. Now we're talking about developing males. I'm telling you, ladies, sisters, you must become conscious of what you say, because males listen to what you say. Males hear females. And you can say something, think you are saying one thing, but you are saying something else, or the male hear something else. So you must become conscious of what you say in any circumstance, because the male hears what a female says. And to the males, the men, we must become conscious of what we do, because our sons watch what we do. And so we must become conscious of that. If you walking around with your butt out, then What makes you think that your sons and grandsons and those who you don't know who are watching you won't do that? If you have emotional responses to everything, what makes you think you won't teach that to your sons? Because our sons learn from what we do, and they learn from what the women say. And so learn from our errors is another thing we need. Don't beat yourself up, even if others beat you up. Don't beat yourself up. Always, this is most important. Here are the prerequisites I'm talking about. Always, always, always be willing to learn and adjust your thinking. You adjust your thinking by learning and listening to the inner voice that is in you, the God level voice. And you learn the God level voice, the real you, by listening. Because you will learn it by hearing it. And that's all I can say about it right now, because I want to get through this. Lastly, don't fear using what works. Things are going to come to you that work but are unconventional, but they work to develop your sons. Don't be afraid to use what works. And see, your enemy will tell you, no, you can't use this. It's a cult. It's the wrong way. It's this, it's that, to prevent you from using something that works. Why would you listen to a mind that won't treat you right? Why would you think that the mind that won't treat you right is going to teach you right? So don't be afraid to try and test something. You get your goal. We want to lay a foundation for our boys. Don't be afraid to try something that works, even though it may be unconventional. And don't be afraid to release what doesn't, even though it's acceptable to a lot of people. Just because a lot of people accept something does not make it workable. You can see from the effect of whether or not it works, even if a lot of people accept it. And say to you someday it's going to work. There's no indication that it will work. Jesus said it this way: the blind lead the blind. He said, well, if the blind lead the blind, they all are going to fall into the ditch. And are we not in the ditch as a people, in the environment that we have subjected ourselves to? So the last thing is to realize that you have been prepared. You don't have to get ready, because you already are ready. You are ready. You are ready. You already have been prepared. Let me show you something. Let me show you your greatness. You are one. You are one person. You have two parents. You have 4 grandparents. You have 8 great grandparents. You have 16 great grandparents. And you have, from the 4th generation back, from that generation to the 4th generation back, it took 32 grands to get you here. And when you go back to the 9th generation of you being here, it took 512 greats to get you here. When you go back to the 10th generation to get you here, it took 1,024 ancestors to get you here. And that's a total of 2,046 direct ancestors across 10 preceding generations to get you here, to make you. So the question is, why are you here? It took that many people to get you here. Let me show you something else. Aside from that, around 2 to 300 million sperm are released during an ejaculation. But only 200, now think about this, 200 to 300 million sperm were trying to get to fertilize that egg. But only about 2 to 300 actually survived the journey to the fallopian tube to surround the egg. You see this? 300 million started out. 300 made it through the fallopian tube to surround the egg. And of those 300 attempting to penetrate the egg's outer layer, biology ensures that only a single sperm, one, you, get to fertilize the egg. After you fertilize the egg, after the sperm breaks through and fertilize the egg's outer layer instantly hardens to block any other sperm from entering. Think about that. Think about the ancestors that got you here. Think about the sperm and the eggs of each ancestor. Take those numbers that I just gave you and multiply it by the number of ancestors that it took to get you here. But then you are here. You are the sperm that fertilized the egg. You are the only one who was born. You're ready. God takes the living from the dead and the dead from the living. I want you to think about it. Jesus said it this way in John 11:25. See, you don't realize who you really are. You don't know. You have no idea who you really are. But God takes the living from the dead and the dead from the living. This is what Jesus said. He said it this way in the book of St. John, verse 11:25-26. I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he were dead, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Now, Jesus spoke in very mystical terms, and I'm not going to go through it all the way because it's a whole lesson in and of itself. But let me repeat that the way it was really said. I am is the way, the truth, and the life. See, I am is the way, the truth, and the life. And whosoever believes in the me, though he be dead, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in the me shall never die. God takes the living from the dead and the dead from the living. So, what is success? We talk about success. We want to build or develop successful men and boys by the end of the century. What is success? Well, success is personal and it's based on the orientation of the male, we're talking about males, and his mission for coming here, his mission for being. So he has a certain orientation. So don't tell a boy he can be whatever he wants to be, because that's not true. You cannot be whatever you want to be. Instead, tell your males, your grandsons, your sons, your greats, your nephews, be what you are. This is a process. This places him on the correct process of self-discovery. You encourage him to be what he is, so that will place him on this process, this road to self-discovery. And the road to self-discovery will help him to discover what he is. You see. So to be what he is, if you tell him to be that he can be what he wants, it will confuse him, because he doesn't know what he is, nor what he wants. So instead of him developing the knowledge, the self-knowledge, he looks around and tries to imitate others, thinking that he can be this or be that, and or do this and do that. And that's why you have an abundance of your males wanting to dunk basketballs and chuck footballs and run track, and very few going into science and mathematics and civilized discovery. You have that among you. You have those who will be great scientists and great mathematicians and engineers and husbands. You have that among you, but because you are being manipulated and steered, all your boys seem to want to go into sports. They're confused by what he is, because you have told your boys that he can be what he wants and made that acceptable. Make it acceptable if he wants to be a garbage man, because this is necessary waste. Developing processes of waste disposal is very important for your environment. A plumber, you don't look down on a plumber, because a plumber is necessary for a modern society. So teach your sons to look to what he is, to discover what he is. That will require him to look inward than to think that he can do everything or anything he wants. That will make him look outward and expose him to the manipulators who want to steer all our young men into sports and dancing and music. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you look outward, you can be manipulated like that. You want to expose your sons to self-discovery. Discovery is what he is, and make him comfortable with his superpower when he discovers himself. Self-knowledge will bring him to his superpower. And that's done through constant self-analysis. And as the Course in Miracles says, a male or anybody, a son of God, and it don't necessarily mean males, but we're talking about males. A male is happiest when he knows that he is with God. He's happiest when he knows that he is with God. And when he knows that he is with God, when he understands his internal being and why he's here, he will become comfortable with the self. And this is what happiness is, when he knows that he's with God. And this is done through self-knowledge. And I have to keep repeating that because you just really got to understand. So I read to you already the state of grace. And the Course in Miracles said the state of grace is your natural state. And in your natural state, there's no difficulty at all because it is a state of grace. And reading it again, grace is the natural state of every son of God. When he is not in a state of grace, when he is looking outside himself, he's not in a state of grace to trying to discover who he is or what he is. When he is not in a state of grace, he is out of his natural environment and does not function well. And this is what they're being portrayed. This is what we notice. They're not functioning well because he's outside his natural environment. And so we, our boys, our girls, our men, our women, we're not functioning well because of the environment that we insist on holding up. And when you're in that environment, everything he does becomes a strain because he was not created for the environment that he has made, nor can he adapt to it. And he can't adapt the environment to him. In other words, he can't make the environment fit him. See, you can't make this environment fit you. You've tried. You've voted. You've marched. You've protested. You've worked. You've humbled yourself. And you discover in 2026 that, like Dr. Carter G. Woodson said in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, that in the end you will discover that you have no more rights than you had in the beginning. So there's no point in trying to make the environment fit you. You got to go into the environment of grace. The Son of God, you, is only happy when you know you are with God, and that is the only environment in which you will not experience strain because that is where you belong. It's also the only environment that is worthy of you because your worth is beyond anything that you can make. See, the state of grace was made for you. Stop teaching your sons to make himself. Do not teach a boy that he can make himself. Teach a boy to discover himself, discover what he already is, because you did not make yourself. And if you didn't make yourself, it's sort of like using a screwdriver for a hammer. You take a screwdriver, and because the screwdriver thinks that it can be anything it wants, I want to be a hammer. Stop it. The state of grace is the first dynamic of survival. Now, I went over these 8 dynamics, and I think I'm going to hit these 8 dynamics harder on Wednesday. But I'll just briefly go through them, and then I'll close out of this program today. The 8th dynamic, there are 8 dynamics or urges for survival. And these 8 dynamics ensure our survival. But if you don't know it, you would think there's only one dynamic. See, you've been steered to the 8th dynamic as a people and don't know the other 7 dynamics, thereby making the 8th dynamic superstition. Let me give you what the first dynamic is, and then I'll talk about the 8th dynamic so you can see how when you are focused on the 8th dynamic, which cannot be proven to you because you have no idea what all the dynamics are and how they work. The 8th dynamic is turned into superstition. Let me just say it out flat. The 8th dynamic is the God dynamic. It's the infinity, or existing as infinity, as an integral part of the God level. But it's the eighth dynamic. Let me show you about the first dynamic. Everything you do, you're doing for your survival. Everything. It might be giving you destruction, but in your deluded mind, you're doing it because you think it's giving you some sort of survival. See, you are good at heart. You are good. And the reason you are good is because your creator created you good, created you right the first time. He didn't have to come back and recreate you. He made you right the first time. So that's settled. You are good. And so when you are in situations that threaten in your mind your survival, because one of your survival tendency is because you think you can be exterminated. The real you can be exterminated. And so these survival mechanisms are there, and they help you to understand that you cannot be. And they're for this. So everything you do is for your survival. So the first dynamic is the dynamic of the self. You. It is the urge to survive as an individual and express your individuality. This encompasses your physical body, mind, and personal possessions, and focuses on attaining the highest level of survival for yourself. Do you see that? And so this first dynamic, if you help your sons to understand who he is, you're dealing with the first dynamic of survival. And this first dynamic is to help. Do you see how it fits with what I'm saying? Don't tell him he can be anything he wants to be. Tell him he can be what he was made to be by his creator. See, we just celebrated the Day of Independence yesterday. And the Declaration of Independence starts off talking about we hold these truths to be self-evident. You got to go inside the self. And this is the first dynamic. Going inside yourself, dealing with yourself and the ability to express yourself as created is the first dynamic. It is about you. I know the preachers tell you it ain't about you, it's about Jesus. But Jesus said it's about you. It is about you. The key aspects of the first dynamic is self-preservation. It includes practical actions for personal care, such as eating properly, getting enough rest, staying clean, seeking medical attention. And, this is the first dynamic. It represents the drive to be unique and a distinct identity as an individual striving for existence. This is what we're going to use to develop successful men and boys for the end of the century. It involves mastering your own space and taking full responsibility for your personal mind and body. And so the next thing in terms of that, here is a help for you. I know that our history teachers have said, and I think I'll finish it up here, and I'm going to talk more about the dynamics of survival on Wednesday. Our history teachers have told us that you can't know your where you are until you know where you have been. The problem with our population is that we don't know where we have been. We've been lied to. And so we can't look outside the self to a environment that has lied to us. You need to buckle your seatbelt for what I'm about to say. And our historians, and they use what they had to develop us to where we have books and periodicals and research to help us to deal with the past. But there's a more fundamental thing that has to happen when teaching our sons history. See, because you want to connect with it. And if you start from a past and there's a space between you and the past, then you can't relate to the past and understand where you are and what you are in the moment, in the present, because you're studying Imhotep and he was a great medicine man. You studied this one and you studied that one, but you have no relationship to that individual. He's just an intellectual exercise, and it has no ability to put in you what you need as a man, because there's no connection between you and Kunta Kinte. There's no real connection. There's a space between you. And so we got to fill that space so that the knowledge, the intellectual knowledge that we have, has things between it to connect us spiritually to Kunta Kinte. And I'm just using this. So how do we do this? I want to give you a new way of teaching history to your young men. Rather than starting with the past and teaching him his history, start with the now. Start with the present and work your way back. This will provide the connection and also help you dissipate the pitfalls that causes crazy thinking. You start with the now and you work your way back. And as you go back as he go back in his history, he's removing all of the aberrations, all of the pitfalls, all of the things that caused him today to act out. And we all got to do this. This is a tough thing I'm about to tell you. But let me give it to you like the Course in Miracles gave it to me. If you only knew who walks with you or walks beside you in the path that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. So instead of teaching history by starting from a past you have no idea of, let's teach history from a present that you know. So we want to start our sons off with himself. What is his address? What is his name? And how did he get that name? But don't go to the past yet. Just give him a brief outline of how he got that name, because there's a lot of things in the present that that's going to help him to understand where this came from and how to help us release it. See, Elijah Muhammad, the Muslim, he brought that knowledge that we are holding names that tie us to slavery. And so every time you say Fleming, you say slave to me. You call me a slave. And so he said we have to have new names. But we don't want to be Christians. We don't want to be Muslims, as Muslims are. And I know Islam means total submission to the will of God. And by that, we all are Muslims in that respect. But you understand what I'm talking about. And our great the masses of our population are Christians. So it's just not going to work to try to make us all Muslims in the sense that the Muslims are. But we can take from the Nation of Islam those aspects, because they're good for us, of Islam, and use them to help us all to develop as a people. You don't want a people who all got the same religion. You want the diversity. You want Buddhists and Muslims and atheists and agnostics. You want all of that. You want that in your population. You don't want everybody to be a Christian, brother, reverend. So going back to it, you start the boy off from his address. You start him off getting him to know his address, his zip code, his city, his state, his country. Just the cursory stuff for the moment. Because we're trying to keep him going inward. And this is the tough thing, and you're going to need more tools for it, and I'm going to give them to you. But start him off from his brothers and sisters, his city, his state, his country. Who is the governor? Who is the mayor? Who is this person and that person? Once you find out all of that, you come back to him. And then you teach him who his sisters and brothers are. Now, many of us have siblings with different fathers and different mothers. So this is where the difficulty comes in. But in that difficulty, hidden in that difficulty, is black unity. Because when you have a family with siblings with different parents, and you now are set with the task of finding out who that parent is and sending that child off with respect to getting an understanding who his grandfather is from that father, great grandfather is from that father, great grandmother, and going back and back and back. You are now developing a relationship between each other. I mean, sister, if he was good enough to have a baby with, he's good enough for his son to know who he is. Brother, if she was good enough to impregnate, she's good enough for your son to know who his mother and grandmother and great-grandfather is from that side of his family. And like I said, this is it will appear to be very difficult, because there are going to be some things that come out that are going to be painful. But there is a process, brothers and sisters, that dissipate the pain and heal us, because we need healing. But until we use the process designed to do that, we won't be healed. And we will go on in craziness and uncivilized behavior and trying to make this environment that we clearly see is no good for us work for us. So as we do this, as you teach your son who his daddy is, who his mother is, and allow him to go back with the connection, there is a psychology and a psychological process that has been put in place that can be used to dissipate the pain of it all. And just like the pain of slavery is sitting in our DNA and in our psychology today, there is a process, brothers and sisters, that's in place, but your enemy has scared you from using anything that works and got you thinking that you got to die and give sacrifice to little period victories. Get period victories. Victories that the cost is too high for what you get from the fight. There is a process that can be used to help us dissipate the pain of slavery as we go back and connecting us to the memory without connecting us to the pain. Tell your sons who his daddy is, women. Tell them the truth and allow him, because in doing this, we're going to dissipate the pain. We're going to dissipate the pain. We're going to dissipate the pain. We don't have joy because we are walking around trying to cover the pain rather than dissipating the pain. And so the pain keeps popping its head up. We got to face it. So he starts from his parent and go and work backward. Now, as he go backward, he's doing two things. He's getting to know himself, and he's getting to face the pain, and he's getting to connect with his history without the pain. And this will build knowledge of himself and connect him to himself and connect him to his brother and connect him to his creator. This step may be difficult because, we got the several baby mamas and the baby daddies, which I've gone through. So I want you to join me on Wednesday, and I'm going to go more into these 8 dynamics. Because the first thing you have to do, since you study the Bible, and Moses came to save his people and free his people, just like Jesus came to save his people and free his people, there are those among you who have come to save us and heal us. And they come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. They come in all religions. But the thing you will notice is that what they bring to you works towards your healing. And so when Moses came in the Bible, in the book of Exodus, the first thing he had to do, and is hidden in the story, when he went out among the people, and there were these 2 brothers fighting each other, Moses began to question them and say, well, wait a minute, why are you doing this to your brother? But because one was part of the 2% who there is no redeeming to him, he said, who made you the judge over us? Are you going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian? See, the first thing Moses had to do was help them to be at peace with each other while they are in slavery. Because if you try to take them out of slavery and then get them to be at peace, they're going to kill each other. So while you're in slavery, the God brings the peacemakers with the medicine necessary to help you be at peace with one another while you're in slavery. So in order to be at peace, we got to take the first dynamic of survival and begin to look inward and work our way out. Hey, listen, I know I went long this morning, but this is so necessary. And I want to thank you for joining me today. Now, join me on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. I'm going to talk about the dynamics of survival and help us to recognize and use those dynamics of survival. So until then, Wednesday at 7 o'clock, I'll see you then.
Now, brothers, In closing, I want you to take this pledge. When I say I want you to say I, and I'll say your name. I know that there's so many names, but I want you to shout your name out so that the ancestors can hear it. Take this pledge with me. Say with me, please. I say your name. Pledge that from this day forward, I will strive to love my brother as I love myself. I say your name. From this day forward, will strive to improve myself spiritually, morally, mentally, socially, politically, and economically, for the benefit of myself, my family, and my people. I say your name. Pledge that I will strive to build business, build houses, build hospitals, build factories, and enter into international trade for the good of myself, my family, and my people. I say your name. Pledge that from this day forward, I will never raise my hand with a knife or a gun to beat, cut, or shoot any member of my family or any human being except in self-defense. I say your name. Pledge from this day forward, I will never abuse my wife by striking her, disrespecting her, for she is the mother of my children and the producer of my future. I say your name. Pledge that from this day forward, I will never engage in the abuse of children, little boys or little girls, for sexual gratification. But I will let them grow in peace to be strong men and women for the future of our people. I say your name. Will never again use the B word to describe any female, but particularly my own black sister. I say your name. Pledge from this day forward that I will not poison my body with drugs or that which is destructive to my health and my well-being. I say your name. Pledge from this day forward, I will support black newspapers, black radio, black television. I will support black artists who clean up their acts to show respect for themselves and respect for their people and respect for the ears of the human family. I say your name. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. That means God is great.